Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished scholars, esteemed guests, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the International Conference on Islamic Moral Economy and Finance 2025, held here in the city of Novi Pazar, Serbia. This event is not only a remarkable academic gathering, it is also a milestone for the University of Novi Pazar, which proudly serves as a host and organizer together with our distinguished partners from the United Kingdom, the University of Dundee, and the International Waqf Fund. Through this partnership, we have built a platform that connects our local academic and business community with the global leaders in Islamic finance and moral economy. For the city of Novi Pazar, a historic crossroads of cultures, this conference carries a special meaning. Known for its youthful population, entrepreneurial spirit, and deep cultural heritage, Novi Pazar stands today as a bridge between Southeast Europe and the wider world of Islamic finance. Hosting such a distinguished event underscores the city's role as an emerging center of intellectual and economic dialogue. We are honored to welcome participants from a wide range of countries, including the United Kingdom, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, France, Norway, Portugal, Croatia, North Macedonia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and of course, Serbia. Your presence here demonstrates the truly international dimension of IMEF 2025 and reflects our shared commitment to addressing today's pressing challenges, from the cost of living crisis and sustainable development to the ethical foundations of finance. Over the next 2 days, we will explore how Islamic moral economy and finance can provide answers to global questions, while also offering practical solutions for communities here in Balkans and beyond. On behalf of the University of Novi Pazar, the University of Dundee, and the International Waqf Fund, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all speakers, panelists, sponsors, and attendees for joining us in this important endeavor. Together, let us make Novi Pazar not only the host city, but also a source of new ideas and inspiration for the future of ethical finance. To officially open our conference, it is my honor to invite our host and organizer, the rector of University of Novi Pazar, Professor Dr. Suad Bećirović, to deliver his welcome address.
Distinguished Mufti Dudic, esteemed experts, guests, colleagues, and friends. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Welcome to Novi Pazar for IMEF 2025, a vision realized by my esteemed colleagues, Prof. Abdukic, unfortunately not today with us, my dear colleague Mohammed Al-Sagir, my dear colleague Harizogic, and of course myself. Our goal was to create a leading international platform for Islamic moral economy and finance here. I'm proud of our progress since the first conference, bringing together diverse global experts. Your attendance highlights the growing importance of Islamic economic principles for a more equitable and sustainable future. At a crucial juncture in human history, we face profound economic and ecological challenges. Our world grapples with rising costs, inflation, wealth disparities, climate change, resource depletion, and biodiversity loss. These unprecedented tests, strain global systems, demand a re-evaluation of priorities and a fundamental shift in approach. The continuous growth model of GDP, often hailed as the sole measure of progress, is proving unsustainable. In the long run, we must acknowledge the undeniable mathematical reality. An average growth of 5% doubles every economic activity every 14 years. and even a modest growth of 2% doubles GDP every 35 years. This raises a critical question. From where will the resources for this relentless growth be sourced? Have we truly considered the origins of materials for our everyday consumer goods, like our mobile phones? What environmental and social impacts will our consumption patterns create? The take, make, dispose linear consumption model has advanced in developed nations, but at the cost of global instability, environmental damage, and inequality. True sustainability requires a profound transformation in human behavior and our relationship with the planet and each other. At its core, our life is a series of choices. Therefore, we must honestly ask ourselves, are we really willing to change our behavior? Do we truly consider the long-term implications of our actions? Or are we consistently swayed by the short-term gains and immediate gratification? Contemporary economics textbooks often resemble weather reports, very active, passively observing phenomena. We speak of an invisible hand guiding markets, implying a lack of human agency. However, market mechanisms are the result of human actions, decisions, and values, and we cannot evade our responsibility. Thus, we firmly believe that the crisis we face extends beyond carbon emissions or waste management. It is a crisis of character and ethics, a crisis of a collective moral compass. Our economy needs a fundamental shift. Instead of being driven by unlimited desire and self-interest, it must be founded on cooperation and our real human needs. We bear a profound responsibility to integrate ethics into our behavior by redesigning our habits, values, and priorities. From an Islamic perspective, divine balance governs not only nature and ecosystems, but also human behavior, economic activity, and our collective responsibility toward creation. The resources granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are a trust to be used with care, moderation, and justice. Islamic ethics offers a holistic framework for managing the cost of living, both materially and morally. Values such as avoiding waste, promoting moderation, eliminating harm, and showing fairness in transactions are deeply embedded in Islamic thought and resonate with the principles of the circular economy. Let us, with global perspectives and diverse expertise, pool our knowledge. Let us not just analyze problems, but actively design solutions with urgency. Let us challenge the status quo and commit to developing new economic models and forging ethical underpinnings that prioritize human dignity, planetary health, and our intergenerational equity. Thank you for your intellect, passion, and commitment you brought here to Novi Pazar. I am confident that today's discussions will enlighten, expand understanding, and inspire decisive action for a more equitable, sustainable, and harmonious future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rector, for your inspiring words and for the continuous commitment of the University of Novi Pazar to fostering knowledge, dialogue, and international cooperation. It is my honor to introduce our first keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed from Durham University, United Kingdom. Professor Ahmed is internationally recognized as one of the foremost authorities in the field of Islamic economics and finance. He is the recipient of the prestigious ISDB Prize for Impactful Achievement in Islamic Economics, and his extensive academic contributions have positioned him as one of the leading voices in shaping the discipline worldwide. Today, he will address us on the theme Islamic Worldview and Sustainable Development, Limits of Legal Compliance and the Need for Ethics. Please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed.
Well, I had prepared a presentation, but it seems I'll not be able to show you the presentation. So I will just try to basically speak based on the presentation. The topic of my presentation is Islamic Worldview and Sustainable Development, limits of legal compliance and need for ethics. What I'll cover in my presentation are three parts. First, I will look at sustainable development in the light of capitalism. This will be the introductory part. Then I will look at Islamic worldview and implications for sustainable development. And finally, spend some time on the way forward. Now, if you look at the background, we live in a time where we have climate crisis, which is resulting in environmental degradation, which poses existential threat to humanity, as the climate crisis can lead to ecological imbalances, food insecurity, and societal collapse. The world has recognized this, and in 2015 it took two initiatives. First, of course, was the COP21, the Paris Agreement, where the countries of the world came together and decided to keep or take steps to keep the overall temperature increase to below 2%, ideally below 1.5% by 2030. But of course, we know that the 1.5 degrees target has already been reached. The second initiative which the world took at the United Nations was the launching of the Sustainable Development Goals. It was an agenda for action for people, planet, and prosperity. The Sustainable Development Goals was one of the first initiatives which looked beyond economic growth. It included social issues related to people and also environmental issues related to the planet. So the key thing was that the notion of development had to change from the narrow economic growth to sustainable development, which meant that human welfare was considered to be prime. And the key thing here was that the human welfare was linked to natural systems. So the achieving the goals of the planet was very closely linked to the achievement of the goals of people. Now, if you look at the capitalist system, we know that it is linked to the neoliberalism framework with origins in the Enlightenment area and industrialization. The institutional framework of capitalism is the issue about private property rights, individual liberty, unencumbered markets, and free trade. One of the things which happened during the Enlightenment area was that they took religion out of public sphere, and with the implication that ethical issues were not discussed in economies. So the production process in a capitalist system uses capital, labor, natural resources, and energy. And of these, capital is the dominant factor of production which controls the other resources, and that's why it's called capitalism. The assumption of a human being was, or the rationality which was assumed of human beings was that of a homo economicus, which basically meant to maximize profits and utilities. So the value was looked at a very narrow perspective of economic value, where value was basically determined in the market and through exchanges. And this is reflected, the lack of ethics in this framework was reflected by the famous quote by Milton Friedman, who said that the social responsibility of a business is to increase profits. And there was no mention of ethics. The ethics or the values was not part of the decision making. Now, under this framework, if you look at the implications of the capitalist modes of financing, basically it is focused on profit maximization. It uses energy and exploits natural resources without limits. The focus is on private costs and benefits. They ignore the social costs and benefits. Social costs being externalities. When production processes create external effects, these are not considered. For example, if a production of something is causing harm to the environment, to the rivers, to the air, for example, these are not added in the calculations. The capital owners, they hide behind the wheel of corporation, which is considered as a legal entity, And the objective of a corporation is to increase shareholders' value, which is basically a very narrow economic perspective. And the result of this framework is that you have rampant profit maximization by Homo economicus, and the corporations who are devoid of ethical values, they unleash destructive forces or what we call corporate violence that harms the societies and environment. So in short, if you look at the building blocks of capitalism, the investors and shareholders, they are considered Homo economicus, and I hope I had slides to share, but the capital is legally constructed. The laws and regulations define what capital is. Business objective is profit maximization. The production process focuses on efficiency. The goods and services produced in an economy are legitimate. Whatever law defines legitimacy, for example, in a conventional economy, gambling is legitimate activity. Transaction and contracts must have legal compliance. And as I mentioned, externalities are ignored unless it is required by law. So it's a very legally constructed framework. So given this framework, if you look at the Islamic worldview, we can say that the Islamic economic and financial system, it's governed by Sharia and fiqh. The difference between Sharia and fiqh is that the Sharia, we consider the revealed text of Quran and Sunnah as Sharia, and fiqh is the jurisprudence which is derived by the scholars to deal with the contemporary and new issues. Most of the economics and finance issues are actually discussed in the fiqh. The overall purpose of Sharia is to realize human well-being, which is basically enhancing the welfare or maslaha and preventing the harm, mafsada. Actually, some Sharia scholars, they say that if you want to summarize the Sharia in one sentence, it will be that Sharia is there to enhance welfare, maslaha, and prevent harm. So to achieve this maslaha, Sharia has come up with some legal principles and ethical values to achieve these goals of maslaha achievement. And of course, these ethical values come from the teachings of Quran and Ahadith, and they are captured in what we call Maqasid al-Sharia and also Qawaid al-Fiqh, the legal maxims. So if you look at Islamic economics from a legal perspective, it is based on the principle of Ibaha, which basically says, it's the principle of permissibility, which says that everything is permitted except what is prohibited by Sharia. The other legal framework of Islamic economics element is the payment of zakat, which is obligatory on all Muslims who have wealth above a threshold level of wealth. So the implications of the principle of permissibility is that as long as you are avoiding the prohibited, the haram, you basically have an Islamic economy. So it's a very narrow definition. So you basically don't produce the forbidden goods and services like alcohol and pork and wine, for example. So that is the halal economy part. And in transactions, you avoid riba and gharar. Riba usually translated as interest, but has much wider implications, and gharar, which is translated as excessive uncertainty. So if you are avoiding riba and gharar in transactions, you have Sharia-compliant contracts. So the legal framework is very narrow in terms of just avoid the prohibited sectors and avoid riba and gharar in transactions. Now, in terms of Islamic ethics and values, we have different sources, and it is actually captured in, among others, the Maqasid al-Sharia. Of course, ethical values are mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah, but the framework of ethics in the context of an economy would be reflected in the Maqasid al-Sharia. The general Maqasid basically relates to human well-being, which is protection and enhancement of faith, self, intellect, posterity, wealth, and dignity. And if you take this perspective, we have a humane and equitable economy. Then we have maqasid which are related to economic activities. Ibn Ashur he came up with specific maqasid or goals of Sharia which relates to economy, and this includes marketability or circulation of wealth, transparency, preservation, durability, and justice. And justice, of course, is an essential part of an Islamic economy. Then we can link maqasid to the environmental protection also. Yusuf al-Qardawi in one of his books on environment, he actually says that environment affects all the maqasid of human well-being, and as such, basically protecting the environment is an essential part of achieving the maqasid. On the human behavioral perspectives, the behavioral element of humans in Islam, it can be defined by what we call Homo Islamicus instead of Homo economicus. Basically, this Homo Islamicus is a framework where we define humans as Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth. And one of the key things which humans should do is to preserve the natural order and balance between creations, which basically translates to environmental preservation. And then on top of it, we have the ethics of compassion and brotherhood, which makes family and community very important pillars of Islamic social system. And the implication in terms of economics is that we have a sector, social sector, which we're talking about social finance in terms of zakah, waqf, sadaqah, and also social capital. So the ethical perspective of an economy gives us an economy which is humane, inclusive, just, and sustainable. Now, the question is, how can we look at the implications of the Sharia in terms of sustainable development? The answer to this question is it really depends on how we define Sharia and Sharia compliance. We can define it narrowly as legal compliance, which basically would be to avoid the prohibited. We don't usually discuss ethics in it, but the comprehensive or wholesome view of Sharia compliance would include both legal and ethical compliance. So I think this is the key difference in terms of how we look at sustainable development in an Islamic framework. The key idea is, if you look at Sharia compliance in a narrow legal framework, we will actually have economic results similar to a capitalist system. Again, I had a table to show the similarities of the capitalist system and the Islamic legal perspective system. They are very similar. So the problems of environmental degradation and sustainable development which we have in the capitalist system will in some ways also be reflected in an economic system which reflects only on legal Sharia compliance. To have a positive impact on sustainable development, we have to bring in both legal and ethical compliance. We have to bring in the issues I mentioned related to maqasid which are related to human development, and also maqasid related to the economics, justice, and which results in more sustainable development. Just to give you an idea of the legal and ethical compliance, so when we're talking about investors and shareholders, we move from Homo Islami legalis to Homo Islami ethicus. So we have ethical human beings. A Khalifa is a representative of that human being. In terms of capital, it's not only legal compliance, but it's legal and ethical compliance. When you talk about the business objectives, it is not only looking at profit, but also the impact on stakeholders, which includes the environment and human beings, the social impact. Production process just not focuses on efficiency, but also it looks at the adverse impact on the society and environment. Goods or services are not just halal, but also halal and tayyib, wholesome. So we look at, so these are the differences when you bring in ethics into it. Transaction or contracts are not only Sharia compliant in a legal sense, they are Sharia based, which considers the ethical issues as captured in democracy than qawaid al-fiqh. And also because of this Khalifa role, when a production process is examined, we mitigate the social harms and the negative impacts on the externalities. So given this framework, we basically can see that to have a positive impact on the in the sustainable development, we really have to have a conceptual, in some ways, transformation from the understanding of what Sharia compliance means. It is not only the legal compliance, but also the legal and ethical compliance. In terms of how we define humans, as I said, if you look at the textbooks of Islamic economics, they usually say it is a Muslim or an economic agent in an Islamic economy would be Homo Islamicus. But what I say in this presentation is that we have to move beyond this definition. We have to move from Homo Islami legalis to Homo Islamic ethicus. So ethics has to be a very important part of this framework. I had some examples to show the current practice, and we see from different studies that the practice of, for example, Islamic finance and ethics, it is focused on Sharia compliance. And when we look at the impact on social and environmental impacts, it is insignificant. And this is actually the summary of the results we have. I had actually 5 studies which I summarized, and all of them show that the impact on society and environment is insignificant. There was an interesting survey taken by Sibafi which looked at what are the key concerns of the CEOs of Islamic banks. They surveyed 103 CEOs from 31 countries. And the first concern for the CEOs of Islamic banks they ranked was shareholders' value and expectations. So this reflects the capitalist, in some ways, structure which Islamic banks have. And when it comes to financial inclusion, micro and small firms financing, it was ranked 18th in their list. So it is basically something which they are not very concerned about. And this is the reflection of adopting a model which just focuses on legal compliance and not considering the ethics. Now, in terms of moving forward, of course, how do we have an Islamic economy? We have to have humans who have these values and principles. Now, of course, how do we embed ethics in economic agents? This is not an easy question to answer. I think what we have to bring in the concept of cultural capital. Usually in capitalism, we talk about financial capital, manufactured capital, and the whole idea that capitalism, the capital is about the monetary, the people who own the capital and control everything. I think in an Islamic economic system, if we want to include ethics, we have to talk about cultural capital. And cultural capital relates to human beings, the cognitive and the normative features of what people, and I think we do not put too much emphasis on this when we talk about an Islamic economics. Again, I had a slide where I had some numbers in terms of how many, this was a World Value Survey which was done in 2022. Just to give you an example, that the cultural capital of a lot of Muslim countries, unfortunately, is in some ways weaker than non-OIC or Muslim countries. There was a question which was asked, most people can be trusted. How many people, what percentage of the population believes this? In 15 OIC member countries which were in this survey, only 14.4% of the people, they said that most people can be trusted. This number was 23.1% in 31 non-Muslim countries in the survey. So the key point, and the world average was 22.2% of the global population from different countries, they said that most people can be trusted. And this number is only 14.4%. So we have Islamic societies, and trust is one of the key ethical or variables which is used for social capital and also in our case, cultural capital. So the key point is that without ethics, even the legal aspects of Islamic economics and finance cannot be done properly. So the key thing is to how to embed morals and ethics in culture of Muslim societies. The only problem is culture is very slow and difficult to change. It takes generations to change culture. But at least we have to be aware that there is a problem, cultural capital problem in Muslim societies. And the key cultural ethical problem is the ethical problem that we are teaching Islam focused on rituals and legal principles, but ignoring the ethics of the religion. When people are not practicing ethics, the other alternative is to come up with public policies. So the government comes with rules and regulations to impose the ethics. Again, we see that this is not being done much in Muslim countries. I'm talking about Islamic finance. Actually, it was only in Malaysia we see some initiatives taken where the government has, the regulators, they come with some policies to introduce ethics in Islamic finance practice. And I'll just mention two documents. One is the value-based intermediation by the Central Bank of Malaysia, where it has provided a framework for Islamic banks to actually add social value in Islamic banking practices. The second one is more recent, 2023. The Securities Commission Malaysia, they have come up with a Maqasid al-Sharia guidance, how to implement Maqasid at the the stock markets and capital markets. So the concluding thoughts is that sustainable development cannot be achieved in an Islamic economy if ethics are not incorporated. To remain relevant in the future, there is a need to broaden the meaning of Sharia compliance from narrow legal compliance to include Maqasid and Qawaid. And this can, if we don't do this, will not have a positive impact on the environment and social impact. I think it is important to remember that Islamic economics finance is for humanity. It's not only for Muslims. It is, as the Quran says, Rahmatul Alameen. It is a mercy for the world. And it is possible only if we can include ethics into the economy. So this implies that we have to focus not only on financial and physical capital, but invest in developing human capital and also, more importantly, the cultural capital. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Habib Ahmed, for your profound insights and for sharing with us your invaluable perspective on the ethical foundations of Islamic finance and sustainable development. Our next keynote speaker is Dr. Ahmet Albayrak, Executive Vice President at Kuveyt Türk Participation Bank, Turkey. Dr. Albayrak is a highly respected leader in the Islamic banking sector with decades of experience shaping the growth and innovation of participation banking in Turkey and beyond. His expertise combines both academic knowledge and executive leadership, making him a unique voice in connecting theory with practice. Today, he will deliver his keynote address on the theme Transcending Sustainability in the Light of Our Civilization, Medeniyet. Please join me in warmly welcoming Professor Dr. Ahmet Albayrak.
Dear Mufti Mevlüt Bedić, esteemed guests, esteemed academicians, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Actually, first of all, I would like to congratulate Rector Suad Bećirović for the conference. I think this is a very new university and mashallah, very nice environment. And also, big thank you to my brother Haris Zogic I call him Braveheart. May Allah increase number of Bravehearts in this community also like him. Actually, I visited and stay over your lovely city in 2024 spring, and saw Novi Pazar University on the way to Kosovo. Little surprise about the existence of the university, but after I met people and understand the importance and the connections of the Novi Pazar to our civilization called Medeniyet, this is right now I can internalize why there is a one university here in the midst of Novi Pazar. Actually, the title of the conference once, starts with the circular economy, and under the concept of circular economy and its daily implications, and of course sustainable development, directly recall the civilization with the question of sustain what? Yes, now I have to mention in Gaza Strip they are after for rainwater to supply water into the city, Long Beach, and it's not possible right now. The human society and the culture are eliminating. Health insurance system already demolished. Volunteers from different nations, of course, with the city people, trying to hold to societal value, like in circular economy. But this is very, very difficult, as much as they can. But now, we don't talk about the genocide, but biocide, we can say. Gaza is dying as our civilization. We lost our light and hope in humanity. So, in my opinion, we need a new consciousness for our civilization. When I say our civilization, it is also cover whole existence, of course. That's why title of my speech, Transcending Sustainability in the Light of Our Civilization, Medeniyet. Why we should change our perspective? Because our ontology says so. Our ontology, because questions, who am I? Why I am here? What's the meaning of life? What's my relation with other people? We have to answer those questions. Civilization, as a concept, puts the standards so that you become civils, pointing out dominant, progressive perspective. Whereas Medeniyet stems from Medina Munawwara. Our Holy Prophet migrated to establish the enlightened city. When we look at the etymology of the word, is the combination of two words, al-Medin, borrower, ad-Dain, lender. So this is a very, very trade-oriented city, lender and borrowers, and also it was also related with the in-depthness of human being. Meaning that as a human being we are always be interconnected, and we are indebted to society and whole existence, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala organize and rule those relations in Quran. As the brother Habib Ahmed mentioned, as the Khalifa of representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to have some responsibilities that we have to take. After Masjid al-Nabawi, first thing that new Medeniyet established, next to the masjid, they established new market called Novi Pazar. That's why Novi Pazar, one of the centers of our Medeniyet, so important, and it's not coincidence that we are doing our meeting today here in Novi Pazar. I would like to come to the Islamic finance, but first I'm trying to say that economy and finance should be part of this great Medeniyet. Economy or iktisad, one of the claims or thesis of the civilization, includes all daily economic activities, of course. Medeniyet describes itself with the belief and value system and legal systems and, of course, ethical or ahlak principles, and finally, economic system. The finance is the result of all these mentioned. When we think about Islamic finance, we always feel something missing. Muslim says that they are doing but. I can see smiling faces. They are doing but. Yeah. Unless you make a new one, there is no other Islamic finance. Let me put it this way first. You can criticize, however, we all should be agree that after 1950, leaders of Muslim societies tried to establish new and business finance model with their best in order to exist in the conventional arena field. The point that we reach to is the product of great endeavors, let me say that. Yes, even though as Islamic finance is very well accredited, very well connected, and translated into a conventional financial and banking system, even very, very practical from the different perspective, maybe more sustainable than the conventional system, still could not propose new or alternative financial system. You have to admit this. Why? Let's think about this. Of course, we have all rights to criticize, but let's admit, where is our Medeniyet stands now and how our financial system stands? What is the angle between two? Medeniyet can only be achieved when you have proper institutions. Those institutions can only be achieved if you take the responsibilities. And we are all indebted. As Ali Izzet Begovic says, as humans, we are deadly, we are transcendental, we are temporary, we are material. But if we would like to be human being, it means something little bit higher than that as humans. So this is related with the sacrificing and paying the indebtedness to the whole existence. I would like to end my words to give salam to a very special person who's not today with us. He's kind of busy right now. Who is not even a Muslim, very far away from our geography. He's from Brazil, but still here in with us. He's a brave heart. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to send my really heart-feeling salam to Tiago Avila, leader of Sumut Filatilla. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmet Albayrak, for your inspiring keynote and for sharing with us your valuable perspective on the role of participation banking and its connection to sustainability and our civilization values. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the generous support of our sponsors and friends of the conference. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for their contribution and partnership. To begin, I kindly invite Professor Dr. Muhammad Al-Sagir to present the certificates of appreciation to our bronze sponsors and media partners. Sancak TV. A1 TV. Tortisani. Campi sokovi. Gazosa. Unicafé. Now, I would like to call upon our rector, Professor Dr. Suad Bećirović, to present the certificates of appreciation to our silver sponsors. Doha Group. Sara Namještaj. Kartal Marketing. Divan Hana. And finally, it is my great honor to invite the esteemed president of the Meshihat of the Islamic community in Serbia, Mufti Dr. Mevlut Dudić, to present the certificates of appreciation to our gold sponsors, after which he will also address us with his remarks. Z Finance Consulting. BM Mjenjačnica. MS Bau Consulting. We also express our gratitude to MTEL Turkey and Kuveyt for supporting this conference. Your Excellency, Mufti Dudić, the floor is yours.
Dame i gospodo, braćo i sestre, poštovani prisutni. Evo, počašćen sam da sam dio ovog velikog događaja ovdje na najznačajnijem mjestu u Novom Pazaru i Sandžaku, na Internacionalnom univerzitetu koji je osnovan prije 22 godine i bio je nekad i ovo naš san da možemo govoriti o islamskom poslovanju, bankarstvu i islamskom poslovanju. Zato mi dozvolite da vas najiskrenije pozdravim i poselamim i zaželim da se osjećate ovdje u ovom prelijepom ambijentu. Velika mi je čast i zadovoljstvo da danas ovdje u Novom Pazaru otvorimo konferenciju posvećenu jednoj od najvažnijih tema našeg vremena, upravljanju troškovima života kroz prizmu islamske moralne ekonomije i financija. Današnji svijet suočava se sa brojnim izazovima, rastućom inflacijom, nesigurnošću na tržištima, sve većim pritiscima na porodične budžete i krizama koje pogađaju najranjivije slojeve društva. Upravo u takvim okolnostima postaje jasno da financije ne mogu biti shvaćene samo kao tehnički mehanizam za ostvarivanje profita, već prije svega kao moralni instrument izgradnje pravednijeg društva. Islamska ekonomija nudi alternativu koja se temelji na principima pravednosti, zabrane kamate, dijeljenje rizika i usmjeravanje kapitala ka održivom razvoju. Ovi principi nisu samo religijske smjernice, oni su i univerzalne vrijednosti koje mogu doprinijeti ekonomskoj stabilnosti, smanjenju socijalnih nejednakosti i jačanju povjerenja u ekonomski sistem. Danas ćemo slušati o praktičnim aspektima ovih vrijednosti, kako islamske financije mogu pomoći porodicama u svakodnevnom životu, kako se mogu razviti poreski odgovorne prakse, te kako se sve to može povezati sa ciljevima održivog razvoja. Uvjeren sam da će ova konferencija biti prilika da eksperti, profesori, studenti i donosioci odluka zajedno razmotre rješenja koja nude islamska moralna ekonomija i financije. Vjerujem da će diskusije otvoriti nove perspektive i podstaći konkretne inicijative koje će koristiti našem društvu i našoj zajednici. Kad se nekada bude pisalo o islamskoj ekonomiji i islamskom bankarskom sistemu na prostoru Novog Pazara i Srbije, nezaobilazna tema će biti i ovaj današnji događaj i svakako doprinos koji je dao Univerzitet u Novom Pazaru. Prije 20 godina ovo je bila tabu tema i na ovu temu se haman nije moglo ni govoriti, ako se izuzme ulema i imami koji su podsticali i govorili o islamskom bankarstvu i financijama. Na drugim mjestima to niste mogli čuti. Evo danas, hvala Bogu, i posebno smjeru Departmanu za ekonomske nauke, našim profesorima koji se ozbiljno bave ovom tematikom, mi slobodno danas govorimo i želimo da damo svoj doprinos kako bismo pomogli u ozdravljenju društva, a posebno ekonomskog sistema. Dozvolite mi na kraju da se zahvalim rektoru univerziteta, organizatorima, partnerima i učesnicima što su omogućili da se ovakav skup održi upravo ovdje u Novom Pazaru, gradu koji ima bogatu tradiciju duhovnosti, znanja i trgovine. Želim vam uspješan i plodonosan rad, a našoj konferenciji da doprinese boljem razumijevanju i širem prihvatanju islamske moralne ekonomije kao temelja stabilnog i pravednog razvoja. Hvala vam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.